Hello everyone and welcome to the second video breaking down the community-based track ranking survey that I put together. For a quick refresher if you missed the previous video, I put together a survey asking you to rate every track in the game on a scale from 1 to 10. I averaged all the responses, which is about 600 in total, and I used those averages to get the final track rankings for these two videos. Last time we talked about your 5 most hated tracks in the game, but today we're going to go the other way around and look at the 5 tracks that you all loved the most, starting with number 5, Big Blue. The first comment I want to highlight is from Q, aka Sir Bookrider. He currently has a time of 1 minute and 0.6 seconds on this track, which is the third best time in the Americas. This was the track that got me into time trialing and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe as a whole. Aside from being a crossover track, automatically gives it a 10 out of 10 in visuals, it's the better of the two F-Zero tracks in basically every way. In time trials, every run you fail is exclusively your fault. There's no randomness, but at the same time, it's extremely challenging. Plus there's the music. Need I say more? Okay, one more thing, since the viewers on YouTube love it. Massive flying shortcut! As Q touched on, there's basically two things that people really love about this track. The first is the music, which, as I pointed out all the way back in my second ever time trial tutorial back in 2021, is pretty much the definition of action-packed. The second is the shortcuts. Arguably the most iconic shortcut in the entire game is the so-called Big Blue Ultra shortcut, which sees you cut off, no joke, about 3 seconds over just playing the intended path. And that's not the only one either. You can cut off part of the turn right before it, you can cut off a bit at the end of section 3, and on 200cc if you're good enough, you can even do a crazy shortcut at the end of section 1. These things all make Big Blue a ton of fun to play, but if I had to nitpick, which you all know I love to do, the main problem I personally have with Big Blue is that there is an item set right before the cannon glider, and basically nothing after that until almost the end of lap 3, which kinda makes the outcome of races online feel way more like a gamble than they probably otherwise would be. But none of that stops Big Blue from being one of the standout courses in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Coming in at number 4, we have Maple Tree Way. The things that I like about the track are summed up pretty well by user A. Perfect mix of nostalgia, visuals, theme, music, new and unique components and stages of the map, different shortcuts and paths, a relatively smooth and enjoyable ride. I especially want to highlight the nostalgia factor here. I never played Mario Kart Wii, but even I get this intense feeling of nostalgia when playing on Maple Tree Way, and a large part of that I think has to do with the music. I'll have more to say about this in my own track ranking video, but the short version is that the song has this really strong sense of rustic summer vacations on the farm, running through cornfields and sleeping under the stars that somehow even triggered in a sheltered city boy like myself. But yeah, what about the track itself? Despite being one of the longest tracks in the game, the pacing of Maple Tree Way feels great, so it never feels like the races drag on for too long compared to other long courses like Waluigi Pinball and especially Wario's Gold Mine, which feels like I'm losing 5 years off my life. And that's kinda how I feel as well. Even though it's not the most technically sophisticated track in the game, there really aren't a lot of long straightaways with nothing to do, and even the final section you can go off to the sides for items, or hit up the middle to trick off the two routes if you're trying to go faster. Now I could spend all day talking about this track, but I think it's time we moved on to number 3, and I couldn't have planned a better number 3 spot because that's Bowser's Castle 3. What's interesting is there really weren't that many people that rated this as their favorite track, and those that did mostly said, "'cause it's good." One reason I personally enjoyed the track was echoed by an anonymous user in the survey who said, SNES Bowser's Castle 3. I think the track looks really great, it has the right amount of shortcuts in my opinion, and the music sounds really good. It's really fun to play well on, and is a really good reimagination of the original track. Like I said in my time trial tutorial for this track, I do think that out of all the courses that actually required reimagining in order to bring them into 8 Deluxe, Bowser's Castle 3 is one of the best, second only to maybe Ribbon Road. I'd like to draw particular attention to the section right after the hairpin turn. On SNES, this was just 3 lanes separated by walls, but on the Switch you can actually drive up these walls and get items if you feel like you're falling behind. I think one issue I have with the course is that none of the shortcuts are really that impactful, and it's one of those tracks where if something goes wrong at any point during the race, it's really hard to come back no matter what you do. But still, this is definitely one of the coolest tracks in the game and a really amazing penultimate end to the Booster Course Pass. Speaking of the end of the Booster Course Pass, at number 2 we have... Listen you guys, I'm not mad, I'm just really disappointed. Alright, I'll save my Wii Rainbow Road is overrated rant for my full track ranking, but there was a through line in the comments that had me a little bit confused. It's between Wii Rainbow Road and Wii U Rainbow Road, both amazing tracks that are fun to drive the whole way through and have plenty of advanced techniques. Wii Rainbow Road. It's just fun to drive after you remember how to do all the shortcuts. Either Wii Rainbow Road or Tour Madrid Drive. Rainbow Road is an absolute joy to play on 200 with some of the most fun shroomless shortcuts in the game. Far be it from me to criticize you all for having differing opinions, but I genuinely don't understand where all these shortcuts and advanced strategies even are outside of maybe the double half-pipe cut. Because despite being one of the longest tracks in the game, I was able to get within about 3 seconds of the record after just a handful of attempts. So yeah, I promise I'm not just being a hater, I really just don't get it. But if you'd like to set me straight on this, make sure to state your case down in the comments. I think honestly a lot of what's going on here is just nostalgia for Mario Kart Wii, which, you know, understandable since Wii came out back in 2008, and the people who grew up with it as their Mario Kart game are now mid to late 20-somethings, which is the prime age group for nostalgia bait. And you know, maybe my inability to fully appreciate this track for what it is just amounts to me being an old-ass man who doesn't understand these kids and their newfangled Rainbow Roads and your TikToks and your Pac-Man video games. Now look, if you love the track, more power to you, but at this point, I'm ready to move on to number 1, Mount Wario. Hailed by 65 respondents as being their favorite track in the game, and is it really hard to understand why? Mount Wario, the music, the setup, the way to run it, everything is amazing about it. Mount Wario, super compelling visuals, great competitive lines, and the 3 independent laps pushes this one to the top. Mount Wario, incredible theme, best music progression in the game, stunning graphics, basically 5 different sections, the start, the cave, the dam, the forest, and the end. I'd even break that down to 3 more sections because you got the slalom bit, the moguls, and then the gigantic ramp at the very end. Mount Wario really is just such a well-designed course, and definitely one of the better sectional courses, even taking into account the booster course pass. If I had to nitpick, and like I said, you all know that I have to, one of the things that keeps this from being an absolute top spot track for me is Section 3. The slalom bit being so narrow makes it prime real estate for spammy item chaos, and then after that, it's basically just 2 long straightaways. The final item set being placed before one of those long straightaways also tends to make the last 10 or so seconds of the race feel like a gamble more often than not. But at the very end of the day, those are pretty minor details, and the absolutely stunning variety of environments and music makes Mount Wario one of the standout tracks, not just for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but for the Mario Kart series as a whole. And those are your 5 most beloved tracks in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Are there any that you wished got in and just didn't, or are there any that did make it into the top 5 that you think absolutely didn't deserve a spot? Wii Rainbow Road! Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching everybody, and as always, I will see you in the next video.